how much does your law school matter once you get the job? We can talk for days, and I'm sure engender a lot of angry responses if we talk about how much your law school matters before you get the job. But it matters however much it matters. Now you've got the job, you're there. Does it still matter if you went to a top Ivy League law school, or just were a really good person at maybe a less respected law school or whatever? I mean, is that still a part of your career that you have to think about as you are kind of prosecuting your actual work? Anastasia, I want to start with you.
Having gone to Yale, I get to sort of have a bias here, but at the same time, I think money is money, no matter where it comes from. So after
God is green.
Exactly. A dollar from a Pace Law grad is the same as a dollar from a Harvard Law grad. You come in, after you have that offer, it really doesn't matter. Work is what counts. Can you bring in clients? Can you do good work? Can you be a great attorney? Nobody cares. I know so many partners that have corner offices who went to not so well-ranked law schools. And beyond that, change is the only constant. So as much as I'd love Yale to stay number one and keep giving them money to do so, they will sometimes, possibly in the next 30 years, maybe fall. Hopefully they don't. But things change. Like those law school rankings change. The thing that doesn't change is your work ethic, the work you can do, and the money that you can bring in to the firm. So people just stop worrying about this when they're in law school.
King, however, I respect Anastasia's point, but however, especially coming out of some of the top law firms in the land, one of the things that you'll hear people say is that if you go to the best law schools, then you are able to go back to your alumni networks at the best law schools and the best colleges, and those people will turn out to be your clients. If you want to make rain, it's still really important to have gone to a really good law school.
I'm going to have to agree with Anastasia. I didn't go to Yale, but I really do think that once you're in the door, it really doesn't matter. I mean, the only thing that may come up later in your career is if you're moving firms, or particularly early in your career, before you might be a partner who's going to be able to make money for a firm, people are going to still care. But I can tell you, I'd never think about where people went to school. My colleagues are my colleagues, and frankly, I don't even know where half of them went to law school.
And also, it's not worth wasting 1 minute of time or one ounce of energy on, because there's nothing you can do to change it. So once you're there, you're there, and it is true, and we can all point to many, many examples of people at some of the most prestigious firms in the country that have become incredibly successful. Having gone to law schools that you'd look at and say, well, they didn't go to the most prestigious law school, which gets back to the earlier point that I made a moment ago. You make your own career once you set foot in, and what you should do is take a look at that place and try and make the most of the opportunity there. Try to not get pigeonholed in the sense of limiting yourself. You want to try and put yourself in a position where you can grow as a lawyer and demonstrate an interest in whatever it is that you're doing. If you're doing bankruptcy work, if you're doing M&A work, if you're doing litigation, do the things that go beyond just working on the case. Do the things that allow you to develop that skill set, and that will take you a lot farther. And to Anastasia's point about the only things that change, forget about the law school rankings change. Again, once you're there, it doesn't matter what they are. What does change is the law firm. The people that run the firm when you come into it as a young associate won't be running it perhaps by the time that you are up for partner, if you stick around that long. And similarly, the things that are important in that law firm today may not be important in that law firm 3 years from now, or 6 years from now, or 5 years from now. It just change is the one constant in the profession, and the speed of it has increased dramatically over the last several years. In some ways, the recession has focused things. In other ways, it's blown things open and created a lot of opportunity. I think there's a lot of lawyers. This would be an interesting sociological study, to do 10 years from now, 15 years from now, people that would have, and you could actually kind of correlate this. There is a way to do this research that David and I have had this conversation, that in 2005, 2006, 2007 would have gotten jobs at such and such firms and gone down this path, but instead did something either in the gap year. I mean, I've known people that have gone to great schools and were deferred and ended up not going to the firm when they were invited to go there because they went on some different path that they wouldn't have pursued. So, there's been a lot of opportunities as a result of the recession as well, I think.
Come on, guys. I've got to believe that there's some reason that Harvard threatens to break my legs every month to pay it back. I didn't spend that money for nothing, right? Lat, you gotta. There's got to be, right? I'm trying to clerk on the Supreme Court. There's a reason. Okay, let's go with this. There's only 2 schools that Supreme Court justices come from that we know of, right?
Well, actually, isn't it 3? Justice Ginsburg got her degree from Columbia, even though she initially started at Harvard, right?
I thought it was the other way around. I thought she started at Columbia and then went to.
No, I thought no, it
she
was the other way
finished at
around.
Columbia.
She's a Columbia graduate because she has the highest. She and now Second Circuit Judge Lynch are on record as having the 2 highest GPAs in the history of the school.
She had moved for her husband.
Yes, she had moved for her late husband. Well, he wasn't late at the time. She moved for her husband,
Yeah.
so she was a Columbia graduate. But yeah, you're right. The rest of them are Harvard and Yale. That's true. Yeah.
But clerking doesn't. But it doesn't still matter even as much as in clerking because when it,
Well, it's fun. I don't. Again, I really think a lot of it depends on how you did in school. So I talked to a judge who has a very elitist hiring policy. He says he gets hundreds of resumes each year, maybe even low 4 digits. Southern District of New York judge, and he looks at only applications from 5 schools. But at the same time, he wants to hire the best people out there. So this is almost a rule of convenience for him. He doesn't want to spend all of his time looking through all of these applications. But if you are an amazing student from one of the schools that is outside of the top 5, and you have a mentor or a professor who clerked for this judge, or some connection to the chambers, you will get looked at. So in some ways, maybe these law schools, again, it's the credentialing or signaling function. Maybe you'll look at the top 10% from this school or the top 20% from this school, or, well, this school's grading system is so incoherent, we'll look at pretty much anyone from there. But at the same time, once you get over that hump, once you get that initial interview, or once you get the callback, or once you get the offer, it really is about who you are and what you do. So, I think a lot of times there's something very hierarchical and prestige obsessed about the legal profession. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of this matters less than people think.
Well, and you'll not only get the interview, you'll get a job. I mean, if you're a top graduate at virtually any law school, if you want to clerk, you'll find a clerkship.
Yep.
well, there you go. If you're going to a top law school, you are a sucker.
No, well, that's not true. I mean, that's not true either. But I mean, but I do think that there is, you can't be wedded to what you perceive as, quote, conventional thinking. Agree.
That's the big caveat about the resume fraud, because people get called out all the time on embellishments. If you say you're proficient in a language and you think it's an obscure language, well, who knows? There might be somebody you meet in the interviewing process who knows that language is a native, and you better be ready to have a nice conversation about derivatives in Swahili.
That is completely true, and I think all of us have stories of that sort of thing happening. At Sherman, it was a very international firm, and that happened several times. But the other thing, the best tip I got as an interviewer going on campus, and when I was interviewing a large law firm, doing on-campus interviews, I had a very set format that I followed, and I would tell the student when I would go in what exactly was going to happen in the interview. And this I thought was a fair way for me to kind of compare people on an apples-to-apples basis. It put the interviewee at ease a bit, and I got information that I thought was most important. But the thing that was most important when it came to large law firms, in my view, with the student, in addition to their grades, was what were the classes they took? Because if they're really interested in going to a large law firm, a lot of law and courses are not really the way to go. Take the serious commercial courses. Take the antitrust classes, take tax, take securities regulation, and then when you show up and somebody sees your transcript, it seems to me that in addition to having done well in those classes, you've demonstrated an interest in doing what we really do for that period of for the next period of your career. Whether you ultimately want to go clerk or you want to do something else or become a prosecutor, that's one thing. But I think that matters. And similarly, if you want to do environmental work, then you should be taking those kinds of classes in law school. So I think interviewers look at the transcript for grades, but they also do, the smart ones at least, look at what it is that people are taking, because those are the people that stick, and they're the people that have the opportunity to flourish, or have the ability, I should say, more to flourish in the environment that you're providing.
We've each kind of touched on a topic of intellectual curiosity. And when I think not just about the interview process, but as a summer associate or as a junior associate, I think that really is a distinguishing characteristic. It's who is treating this as a career and not as a job, because anybody can parachute in and spend 10 weeks, but you really leave the firm with an impression that you care, that this is something you are very interested in, that you're going to do the extra, whatever it is, to produce good work, that's going to leave a strong impression with the associates and partners with whom you work.